Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This big show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Midnight Texas. So let's break down things that went down in this episode. First of all, we learn a tiny bit more, not a lot, about the situation with Kai's that severed head in his room. Well, it turns out that's one of his ancestors that he draws power from, which I'm wondering, I guess it kind of borderlines some stuff like Manfred does. I mean, to be fair, Manfred's situation is more so like it's like sacred items type of thing that he kind of draws from, so it's a bit different. But like, what is up with Kai's family that he's able to draw power like that? Like, what is that power all about? You know, it's kind of the big question. So I'm curious, is this has, like, I'm going to be skipping around, I might as well kind of get to it. It's like, I'm curious, does this have anything to do with Fiji's situation? Because obviously, like, Kai's in this town because he wants revenge. Patience seems like she doesn't really know Kai's potential true motives. It seems like she's kind of like, oh yeah, she's married to Kai and just kind of along with everything. I'm sure it's probably a situation of she believes in everything that he does, so there's that. But obviously, bouncing around and kind of talking about Fiji's situation, she ends up apparently her Aunt Mildred went to witch hell, which is interesting. Because the whole time it's like, okay, so now we can't do anything. Like, I can't even think about having sex with Bobo because the moment I do, something bad happens. Which I love that scene because it's like, you know, Bobo's taking a shower and everything. I'm like, oh, wow, this is... And then she's looking at it. I'm like, oh, whoa. Like one of those scenes that kind of make you kind of blush a little bit, like, oh, ooh, I should be looking at this type of thing. I don't know why. Like, I think it's because it's on NBC. It makes me go, ooh, whoa, ooh, so scandalous. I don't know why. I'm so stupid. But you see, like, Fiji's kind of like being like, oh my God, I'm about to faint because this, you know, I thought that was kind of adorable. But then also, like, the situation of Mr. Snuggles coming up and being like, hey, Bobo, like, Fiji's hands are full and it's time for me to eat. And it's kind of like, what? And he's just kind of like, oh, whatever. So I thought it was funny. But, you know, Fiji was under the impression like anything sex related, whether they have sex or even the fact of the matter is that she's even thinking about having sex with him is enough to kind of make this all happen like that. Because part of me was wondering, I was like, it's probably not even really Bobo that's the target. Maybe it's more so Fiji, which technically it turns out that is the case. But like I said, her Aunt Mildred was in Witch Hill, which is interesting because it's like, because we never knew that too much about her Aunt Mildred, because she only popped up in one episode when, you know, when she was flash backing last season about the whole Jeremy situation. So that's the only time, and because we never found out how she died or whatever, and it turns out because she was using dark magic to try and fix her situation, because apparently their family has been cursed. It's been like an 800-year curse, and part of me wonders that might actually be why Jeremy died. It might not have been the fact of the matter is that, like, oh yeah, like, I mean, maybe it is 100% just because she couldn't control her powers, but part of me wonders if it's not just a curse too. Like, at that point, like, their feelings had become established and then that happened and it just kind of coincidentally happened to be her powers. It might have actually been this curse that killed Jeremy, or maybe it was her powers. It's kind of hard to say. Because it seemed like Bobo was kind of like the first person she's been in love with in a very long time since the whole Jeremy situation. Obviously, she's had a reluctancy to probably like get close to people subsequently since then, but still. So now the situation is like, apparently there's no way to permanently fix the situation without kind of breaking somebody's heart. Because in Mildred's case, Mr. Snuggles was a dude named Jebediah, like, that she loved. And that was the only way to save him was by turning him into a cat, so that there's like, it's like by turning him into a cat, like there's no more of like him being in a human form to love. I guess it kind of diminished the love between them. So it's kind of like the only way is to lose the person that you love. Is the only way to kind of keep them safe in all of this. But that was what I was wondering, because obviously Kai's in town for revenge. So what if his situation has something to do with Fiji's? That's kind of my thought process. Like, what if one of his ancestors cursed Fiji's family for whatever reason, because that's something they don't know why. Because even Mildred's like, I don't know why it happened 800 years ago. And that vision that Manfred got when he touched the head, that seemed like a very long time ago. But to be fair, we got like a quick flash of it, so we don't know what else is going on with that situation. So I'm very interested to see where that goes, because sadly at the end of it we see Fiji kind of like being harsh to Bobo, being like, you're not the one, so that's why all this stuff is happening, so we're done. Because she knows that she tells Bobo the truth, Bobo won't stop loving her. It's like, because that's not going to stop him loving, but keeping him in the dark is going to make it so that he, walks away heartbroken. The moment he stops loving her is the moment he'll be safe. But the problem with Fiji's logic in that regard is, I guess she thinks that she gives it enough time, Bobo will be safe. This way she doesn't have to turn him into a cat or an animal in general, or, into a familiar or whatever. Which is so interesting, because I was curious about that too. It's like, what about Mr. Snuggles' whole situation? I thought it was just kind of like a Salem. Well, I don't know how typically Salem's situation is based on the original, like, Sabrina the Teenage Witch TV show, that whole familiar thing. With the chilling adventures of Sabrina, that's kind of like a whole other cup of tea, because it kind of does its own situation when it comes to the whole how familiars work in that. So I don't remember. I guess a better analogy would be Hocus Pocus, because I forgot, it's been such a long time since I saw the movie. The cat in that movie is actually a dude that got cursed and turned into a cat. So it's that, like that. I don't remember if Salem was actually a human, or is he just like a talking cat? I don't remember. But nevertheless, I don't know. Because that's interesting, because Mildred died and there was no turning him back. Is there like not a way to turn him back? Or is it something like only Mildred would be able to do it, but now that she's dead, she can't do that? I'm curious to see what happens on that front. But like, like I said, I'm sure Fiji's hoping that given enough time, Bobo will move past her, but I doubt that. Those two are really in love. And it's kind of sad too, because Manfred was so intent on helping them, even kind of putting himself in danger, because it's like midnight kind of separated him and Creek, and he didn't want the same thing to happen with Bobo and Fiji, because they're one of the couples in the town that you're like, I want to see them make it, so I mean, same thing with Olivia and Lim too, especially going through their situation, but I'll talk about them soon enough. So it's kind of sad that things kind of played out like that, but I'm very interested to see what that turns into, like to find out that whole curse situation. And since I am talking about Kai subjectively, it's also interesting because they are like I thought they were, like, they're heavily playing the whole Patience and Manfred situation, kind of like them kind of getting close and everything. And it's like, oh, and it does seem like she has pure intentions, because Fiji performed a spell on her hair to be like, oh, okay. So it's like, oh, she can be trusted. To be fair, Manfred still doesn't know about Kai, but for now, Patience does. And it does seem like I brought up before, like, Patience kind of had that air, like, about her, like her character, in the sense of like, oh yeah, like, Kai's just not really there for her. He's so focused on the mission that's all that kind of matters, like helping people, like doing whatever he is outside of town, which is, I'm wondering what that's all about. Is it preparations for his revenge? Because it's like, you're here trying to get your revenge, so why aren't you here getting your revenge? Not unless everything else you're doing is connected to it. I don't know. I'm curious to see what that's all about, but it is interesting that we are seeing those two get closer and closer. Then another side of things, which is really interesting, is the whole Madonna angle. She brought up an interesting conversation earlier in the episode about the whole, like, not like, Midnighters should kind of embrace who they are. Like, being different is kind of, it makes up a part of who you are. And if you get rid of that, it's kind of like messing with your DNA. Like, it's kind of unnatural. You were born a certain way, so you can kind of, like, in her mind, it's kind of like that supernatural side of you. It's who you are. It's kind of like part of your essence. And you remove that, you're kind of killing off a part of yourself, I guess. Which is kind of an interesting perspective. But Chewie is kind of like, well, yeah, but you don't know what it's like kind of being born into, a situation where you kind of feel like a freak and an outsider, So I thought that was kind of an interesting conversation. But the whole thing with her this episode, I'm very interested in, because obviously she was ordered to get something, and I'm assuming that was by Olivia's dad. But it seemed like it was blood. Why her blood specifically? I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that her blood is combined with Lemuel's. So maybe he's trying to, he is very protective of her. So it's like, maybe he knows about, oh, Lem saved her by giving her his blood. So it's like, oh, to find out what's happening to his daughter, like, trying to be the protective father. It's looking into that. So I'm sure that's going to cause complications later on, because he's going to come tracking her down, he's going to come to midnight, even though Madonna literally told him in the season finale, do not come to midnight or you're going to ruin everything. So it's probably going to cause problems. Like, there's already a little bit of a between Olivia and Lemuel, but obviously they're kind of working on it. There's still the complications, but they're working on it. But I'm sure it's going to get even more complicated with her dad stepping into the picture because trying to be protective and everything. It's like, oh, I'm going to stop this whole situation. Maybe. That's just kind of my initial thoughts on it. We'll kind of have to see in the long run. I thought it was interesting because Madonna was like, I'm never going to do that again. So, like I said, we'll have to wait to see like what the real reason for potentially getting her blood was. Another thing this episode was kind of like the big thing of like the Rev situation, which for one, we learned the Rev is not really the Rev. He actually took the identity of Reverend Emilio. That was the guy he accidentally killed 10 years ago. And the guy was like, oh, last thing he said was praying God for forgiveness for the Rev. And so making his way to midnight, he met Lemuel, and it was kind of a fresh start for him to make penance for all that he had done, which when Lemuel told him was like, after everything you've done, like, you don't think of yourself as a good man, but look at you, like, you were able to bless the weapons we used to fight the demons, and it worked. The fact of the matter is, you allowed me into this church, and then you blessed our marriage, my marriage to the woman I love. So it's kind of like you've been the heart to this town for such a long time, and it's just kind of like, you are a good man. The fact is, you have been doing God's work. So, which is so interesting in the long run. Why? Just because it's kind of funny, because it's like, is it coming from Lemuel, a vampire? Because typically, and I feel like I guess like the whole him not going to a church, it kind of plays in that. But it's always interesting because it's like, yeah, like vampires are always seen as like these unholy things. And for a vampire to talk about God is always just kind of, it's an interesting thing, just because it's like, huh. I mean, it doesn't mean like Lemuel wasn't religious before he became a vampire. I know, it's kind of funny. You just never hear about that. Like I said, because of the whole like generalization that like, oh, vampires are treated like unholy things. So it's interesting when you think about it too much like that, which I'm thinking about it too much like that. But what really shocked me and then kind of didn't, was the fact is, oh wow, the Rev already went to Kai. I felt like someone was going to go to him, but the Rev had already done it. And for him, he just wanted to talk it out because he felt guilty about it, which Lynn was kind of like, hey man, you're a good guy, But because of that, he's like, I can't stay in midnight, just because it's like, hey, I've lived my life bound to this curse. And it's like, now that I have the chance to enjoy the world without having to worry about hurting anyone, I can just live my life. Which I'll go ahead and talk about to the other side of what I was talking about. It's kind of like an outside of the show thing, but I kind of had a feeling it was going to be the Rev, just because I think I remember before season 2 had started, I saw headlines talking about 2 cast members would be returning this season. So one being the actress who plays Creek, because obviously she was in the first episode, but I don't think and I think I talked about that before. It was kind of like, I hinted at like, I don't think she'll pop up in the rest of the season. She could, but she might not. She won't be a regular this season. And it seems like this might be the Rev's last episode, so he's stepping away. I'm guessing, like, Patience is kind of taking the place of Creek in a situation. And I guess Walker's kind of taking the place of the Rev, especially considering the fact is that there's the whole situation of, like, when you look at what I guess is kind of like the poster for this season, it shows those two. That might not have been Walker, that might have been someone else, which that's the situation I'm going to have to dive into in a second, but I almost let that slip my mind. But it's very interesting that, the Rev is gone now, so it's kind of, I wonder, is there going to be anyone to kind of, fully take that role? Will it be like Manny? Which also, interesting enough, he's owning a spot in the hotel, renting a spot in the hotel now, so that's definitely interesting. I guess we won't see him going back into the trailer that often, potentially. It's going to be, I guess, like, with them having, the big kind of draw-in of, the business, and then just like, oh yeah, like, Manfred kind of getting some of that business as well. Maybe we'll kind of see him take on more clients this season or something like that, kind of helping them out. Maybe, I don't know. We could kind of have to wait and see on that. And then the other thing was the whole Joe situation, as I guess Joe is kind of enjoying this whole killing demons thing, which I do kind of wonder is like, how do you justify that, considering the fact that the man that you love is a demon too? Like, that's got to be a little weird on your part, but I guess not. You just kind of all willy-nilly go off with Walker. You bring up the fact is like, oh man, you and Chewie, you love him and everything, but then it's kind of like, yeah, you're secretly off killing demons, which even you talk to Walker about it being like, man, I love ain't really too keen about the idea of me, if he knew that I was doing this. If it's to the point Joe literally took off his shirt so he wouldn't get it covered in blood. But that whole Walker situation took a turn I wasn't expecting in a sense of like, it's not just like slaying demons thing. It's also like, oh, we're also in the whole ballpark of like it potentially being a romantic thing too, because it almost seems like when they were cleaning themselves up, it almost hit it off. I'm like, wow, I didn't expect that. I knew there was a whole demon slaying angle to it, but maybe that kind of plays a part into it, which I think is so interesting because it's like there's the whole Bowie situation last season, and I think I brought that up before too. It's like literally the whole Bowie situation. You fought it so hard then, but why is the Walker situation so different? I guess for him, it's kind of like he gets to keep Chewie while also doing this off on the side. I guess is kind of Joe's justification for it, which is interesting. I mean, the fact of the matter is that's kind of another angle to this is Walker's situation. Because for one, it's like Walker's got that weapon. It's like, did Walker make that himself? Or did someone else do it? The reason why Walker knows about demons, because it's like, oh, demons took a lot from me. So I'm assuming that's a family situation. Which there's a part of me going like, you don't think this has anything to do with Chewie. Chewie has his moments of going a little crazy. I mean, we never really found out too much about Chewie's family situation, did we? Like how and why Chewie family ended up dying. Actually, I forgot. No. I mean, at the very least, it shook because I forgot Chewie's like super old. I forgot like Chewie's just like Joe. You ages very slowly. I mean, at the very least, because of their situations, you can't really tell their age. So I was about to say, like, is this it's one of those moments? Because I was thinking Chewie was kind of like, I was thinking from like a human perspective, but I was like, all right, Joe brought it up like last season how him and Chewie actually met, and it was kind of like way, 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 way back in the day, if I remember correctly. So, I'm curious what that whole Walker situation will be then. Like, will that be just kind of like oh yeah, it is what it is. His family situation is just kind of like the setup that led him here, so it's not important. It's just kind of giving you his motivation. Or will it eventually kind of fold into the story of being like, oh yeah, it plays its own role? It's hard to say. I'm definitely curious to see how long Joe can keep this up, because Chewie's going to catch on at least on some point, or at the very least someone else is going to catch on beforehand, and I don't know. A lot of secrets floating around right now. Because you also got to think about it too, because Manfred's going to have to keep Fiji's secret. So that's a secret on his part. Oh yeah, there's Madonna's secrets, which the question does beg then, like, why is it that Madonna is helping him? I wonder, was that before she found out was actually friends with Olivia, which I'm assuming it was. It's kind of like, hey, we'll pay you to watch my daughter. Like, you have our own hard times. Go to midnight, look after her. And it's like, oh, yeah. Like, and then she became friends with Olivia, which makes her feel even more scummy about the situation. Like I said, I don't know. I'm very interested to see where all of this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love that to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.